Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's your favorite paranormal investigator. My name's Tim Sudano. This is Paranormal Insight, and that's my phone going off. It doesn't seem to be too terribly important at the moment, but today we're supposed to have Joe Montaldo on the show. He took ill at the last second last week. I talked to him this morning. He said he'll be here, so he's running a little behind, I think, today. Let me tell him to jump in at the last possible, at the earliest opportunity. At your earliest, let me type that in. There we go. And that business is settled. And I'll stick this on buzz so it doesn't bother anyone. So welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Today this is our part 3 into alien abductions and what it all means, and are we being played for fools, or are these people actually experiencing things? Let's do a very quick recap. For my personal self, I had a strange dream, and I'll recap it for you quite briefly. And let me share my little thing here. There I am. Okay, so, and again, I'm sorry I'm in slideshow mode, but it's the most efficient. Well, maybe I'll just try it. Nope, that didn't work for you guys. Anyway, so, I had this dream, a couple, 3 weeks back, or maybe a month ago now, where I was in a desert town, and my team, Scary, was on a case where in this desert town, I'm not sure where it was, there was an ongoing UFO flap. Everyone there has seen saucers and the like, and among them, if I can click on this stupid thing, it's not going. Technology is fun. Okay, so let me go back into it. So in the desert town, there it is again. Why isn't it going? That's what I don't get. So, in the desert town, there's this abandoned baseball field, and in this abandoned baseball field, along the backstop, was an old hotel. I guess at one point this was like the Little League capital of the world or something like that. But it had fallen to, disrepair and just harder times oh God, I cannot talk today. Anyway, so, in this town, there was this mother-daughter team, duo, and they both had this story where they'd seen each other on the medical beds being experimented upon. They've witnessed each other's abductions. They've seen the saucers for themselves, and the alien creatures that accompanied them. Well, they say, hey, if you want to see them for yourself, stay at the hotel. And I said, okay. And I know I have my team with me. And so we stay at the hotel, and I'm in my room very late at night. I know that's a little hard to see, isn't it? But, okay. So, let's just go slide only here so you can see what's going on. There we go. That's a little bit better. That still didn't help you guys, though. Anyway, so here's my little room. It's very dark. And then all of a sudden I get a call, and it's on my cell phone. It's one of my team members, and I have like 5 or 6 PS. I don't know. In this dream, that was the case. But everybody was there. And it's staticky. On the cell phone, it's statically weird and garbled. They say, they're here, they're here, they're here. Look outside your window. And, sure enough, boom, UFOs outside my window. I couldn't depict it in this shot because AI didn't know what I was talking about, but there were these shimmery curtains that, they're kind of gauzy. They make everything kind of, translucent isn't the word, but, anyway, they're kind of sheer, but they diffuse the light. That's the best way to put it. Well, the little guy over here, and I'll introduce you to the players here in the UFO. So that's the capital drone slash ship, and this is the little baby ship it had with it. And they both have these weird little camera apparatuses on top of them, but this little guy, looking through my window over here, if you can see my cursor, looks in and has a, with his spotlight, moves the curtain open. And I could feel the electromagnetic weight, I guess you could call it, as he scans across to open the curtain. And I feel it. I can feel it, like the tractor beam, for lack of a better term. And then the next moment, I know I'm floating. I'm in my sitting position that I was on the bed when I received the phone call. And suddenly I'm floating. My only words to this thing is, hello again. And in the next moment, I'm suddenly back in my actual bed, in my real house, and I'm in the midst of waking up, and I feel this very tangible chill come all the way down my body in a very uniform sense, top of my head to the tip of my toes, and I have to tell Joe just joined me. I have to. That's the sensation I feel when I wake up. So now that I've recapped that for everyone, I'm going to bring in my guest. Today's guest is Joe Montaldo, and Joe just joined us. So Joe, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you, man. I wasn't sure I was going to make it, man. This face gets to killing me sometimes, and you never know when it's going to do it. And it just stopped like 2 minutes ago. So, oh, cool. I can go see Tim.
Excellent. I'm glad you're feeling better.
One of those things. I'll be glad when this shit's over and done with. It takes a few weeks. I had sent you some pictures earlier. We'll pull them off of Facebook in a little while. But how you been, man? Life's been treating you okay?
I've been good, man. I was just recapping for the audience my dream, and that what kind of got us started. Haven't had that dream or anything close to it since, and that was about a month ago.
Was that like a LGBTQ dream or something? Is that what that was?
No. No, that was when that's when these guys showed up outside my hotel room.
You never know how that works around these days. So, it's really funny because somebody asked me the other day, serious question, are aliens gay? And I was like, and I looked at it, and I'm like, well, I don't think the reptilians are. So I'm pretty sure the humans aren't. I said, and the Greys breed in a weird kind of way. I said, so I'd have to say no. I mean, I'm not saying that maybe sometime in the past. I said, but I think reptilians take their breeding pretty serious. So I'm thinking not so much with them. And the humans, as far as I can tell through our histories, because we got a pretty good history with them, there doesn't seem to be too much man on woman on woman. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible or it never happened because, frankly, I wasn't there. I said, but I said maybe they've worked past that. Maybe whatever it is that triggers that, they've figured out how to untrigger. I mean, really, I don't know, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I would think an advanced civilization that wants to breed and colonize the universe would probably work past that in some shape, form, or fashion. And
it's
people
funny
don't
you mentioned that, actually.
If you do get offended at Tim. Go ahead.
Big hello to Christina Lantis from Michigan. Thanks for joining us in the chat. She thinks people, the aliens probably make fun of us. I guarantee you, we're a giant joke galactically. We are the punchline to many jokes. But it's funny you mentioned that because there was a biologist on, like, I can't remember, like the show Nova or something like that, and he was a gay person, and he came to he said, you know what? That's a great idea. He actually won a Nobel Prize for this. He says, why am I gay? What's the cause? What's going on? So he dug into it. He did family histories. He did brain analysis, vivisection analyses. Hey, Jen's on the chat. Thanks, Jen. Hi, Jen. How's it going? And he came to the conclusion that it was a strange little mutation, like a little trigger in the human genome that is supposed to curb our population. So it's a population control mechanism built into the human genome, according to his findings.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I've talked to several doctors and theologists about this. Actually, I've talked to theologists. Sorry, wrong term. But I've talked to quite a few scientists about this over the years, and on some of the other shows, like News on the Flip Side, where we can get away with chat like that and not get in trouble. I've actually talked to them. Whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to send that to somebody. I've actually talked to them about great detail, and most of them tell me the same thing, that it is some type of mutation in us, but the mutation isn't what causes it. You still have to make the choice. So even though that you're predestined, so even though it's in your genes and it is something that you may or may not follow, you still have to make the choice. It still has to be some reason, something that triggered the choice. And God, I remember we had three different scientists on about this, and it started so much trouble. I was like, okay, I wish I had never got into it. Because, a lot of people tell me they're born that way, but that's not exactly true. You're born with you can be that way, but you still somewhere have to make the choice. And really and truly, you don't really even know until puberty. When people tell me, oh, they know it. No, you don't know it 5 years old. And just so you know, people, I used to play with my sister's Barbie dolls. I used to bake on her Easy Bake Oven, which, by the way, I miss baking on her Easy Bake Oven. But you know what? As a man, I would be considered a horn dog. So until I got married, and I've been married 43 years, ladies, but still, before that, I was a no good bastard. And so there was no, just because I played with dolls, I didn't get no dresses, but I liked my mom's mean coats and stuff. I mean, them firm bitches were soft. It's so it's not something that's actually you have to. There's something that triggers it. Outside of the womb, there's something that triggers it. There's been a big lawsuit about this. But anyway, I mean, I doubt aliens. I would think aliens, because they're colonized and they would want to maximize their colonization. Mm-hmm. They would have probably figured out how can I say this nicely, do away with that. I mean, it would just make sense. But hey, we're not scientists. You have to ask the alien about that. Next time I see
for sure.
You see Bob back there next time.
Bob the alien, yeah, exactly.
Next time I see his cousin, I will ask and say, "Hey," because I know where the Greys breed. Well, the way the Greys breed, there is no place for it, because basically I don't want to call it test tube breeding, because it's not really what it is, but they find somebody, and what's funny is, in the old days, no one ever thought that the Greys had male and female, but they do. And when you talk to one, or you're talking to one, you'll notice there's no genitalia to tell you the truth. You're not going to be able to tell by looking at them, but by talking to them, you can tell there's a female and a male in the way they do things. So from the way it was explained to me, they just choose which ones are going to be. They go to this center, they donate everything, and then boom, 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 like 5 children are born, and then they don't, by the way, they don't raise them. This place raises them, and then at a certain age, they're put into the society.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, eventually we'll get there. But
that's an intriguing methodology. Going back to the biologist I talked about, he actually said that there was this chemical, and I can't remember. It had some long string of numbers. They don't even have a name for it, but we're all born with it at certain determinations. I mean, certain volumes, and it's not much. It's maybe like a true medical drop, and there's various bits and if it's a larger drop, you're male. If it's a smaller drop, you're female, and that's kind of where the determination comes in. but it's filled out at the stage of puberty, and that's kind of. It's like our brains or our hearts or our feels or whatever it is, whatever that mechanism is, reads the world somehow. I mean, we've all heard that we're networked anyway. And it reads the world and says, okay, we're overpopulated. Guess what? You're not going to be a technical procreator. So, ta-da!
Yeah, it's one of those things that we'll leave it for what it is, and people enjoy your life, whatever it is. Personally, somebody asked me one day, "Do you care?" I said, said, I was born in New Orleans, one of the gayest cities on the planet. I said, for us, it's different. Well, it's like black and white. For us, it's different. You're raised that way. You don't think of it anything as anything different.
Yeah.
You just think of it's part of life. You know, if you go down the city and you see all these crazy festivals that go on, we grew up with that, so we don't think it's anything special. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's why the black and white population in New Orleans get along so well, because we all party together and hang out together, and we don't really notice color. Just notice, is he an asshole or is he not? And it's pretty much with the gay community. But you know, if alien, and you know, so here's a question for you: how many abductees are gay? How many do you know that have been reported? So we've got 124,000 cases on file. Not one of them is LGBTQ. Not one of them. So, and out of that, we went through about 360,000 cases to get to that, and not one of them were. Huh. So it doesn't mean they don't exist. It just does. It means, and if you go across all the other abduction researchers out there until today, no one's reported one.
Right. That's interesting.
So that just tells you part of the thing they're looking for is breeding, and breeding with two humans. So I guess that's not in their program, I guess. I don't like saying things like that, people, because you just never know when it comes down to this stuff, what's going on.
Yeah.
And
well, that's very interesting you said that. Yeah.
You know, I don't care what color you are, what your sexual preferences. I got to be honest with you. I don't. It's not something I care about. It's you know, one of my nephews was gay, and he died just recently. Poor guy, but he was a billionaire. I mean, he was married to his husband, and he left $1 billion. They left $1 billion law firm together. He was in environmental law. He was a billionaire, so you know, I could care less what he was. I was always like, "Sure, give me some money, man." Pay my bills. Give me some money, man. Yeah, but he wasn't that kind of guy. But it's funny to me that it even comes up in conversation. But it does, and it comes up a lot. I get a lot of questions about this, and I always have to say the same thing. Currently, I have no cases on file that relate to that. Now, if I get any, I'll be sure to tell everybody. But as it stands right now, I just don't have those cases. Not to say they're not out there, not to say some other group somewhere doesn't have those cases. I just personally don't have them. But hey, if you know about somebody, be sure to write me at icar@cox.net. I'll be sure to look into them. I'm always interested in this kind of stuff. It's you know, live and learn.
Yeah, man. Let's jump into the topic. Let's briefly recap something I kind of went over since you weren't able to make it last week. Maybe you could help me out. With regard to hypnotherapy and the alien abduction, you know, box, so to speak, can we rely on the hypnotherapists of the past not to induce or introduce extra information? Like if they fill in blanks they think that are correct, or were they, like with Betty and Barney Hill, for example, did that hypnotherapist fill in blanks? I'm not aware.
No, because he didn't know about extraterrestrials and he didn't care.
Okay.
So in their case, it was different. But when you start talking about hypnotherapists that work inside the field, which I'm not going to mention any names, they are bad about it. So it's one of the reasons ICAR did what we did. So one, we use hypnotherapy as a last resort. And once we have to use it, so I'm going to go, okay, Tim, I want you to tell me about your story on October 15th, 1989. I want you to start at the back. I want you to go all the way through the story and stop, take a breath, get a drink of Coke, put you a little deep, and then I want you to go backwards in the story. And then we're going to stop. And we're not going to do anything else. We're going to take that video and that audio, and you and I, along with 2 or 3 other researchers and people that you know and trust, are going to sit down and formulate a line of questioning. Because I'm not allowed to use words like spaceship or extraterrestrials or grays. I'm not allowed to use any of those words. You have to be the one that uses those words. So when you tell me, you say something's walking, I say, well, what kind of being was it? Tell me about it. Describe it to me. And then you'll describe it. And once you describe it to me, and I know what it is, then I can go back and say, okay, all right, you saw this gray. Tell me what this gray was doing. But I can't do that until you say it. And we're really, really, really strict on this because, unfortunately, I've found a lot of the hypnotherapists inside the field are guilty of, oh, well, that was a gray, or that was, oh,
Okay, that was my question.
yeah. And then they're really bad about, or they'll use Palladians or things like that. And when you use words like Palladians, okay, 50% of the field says they're grays, 50% say they're reptilians. I mean, what? We don't really know. Some of them think they're humans. And then when you
That's
talk
what I
about the
heard.
Anunnaki, yeah. So when you talk about the Anunnaki, somebody says they're human, somebody says they're gray. I mean, I wasn't there, I don't know. So, and I'm not going to get an argument on what they were, because there's no pictures of them. Matter of fact, if you look, the Sumerians, the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians, the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Toltecs, if you look at their pictures, all of them have one picture of of a reptilian about 7 or 8 foot tall, holding some kind of purse looking thing with these gear on. All of them do. So that means no matter what, that these reptilians interfered in at least 7 societies that we know of.
Early societies at that.
And of course, these are societies that I was told by other researchers were humans. Well, guess what? Somebody was wrong. So when you get into this kind of stuff, the ICAR is different than most organizations because we have rules about things. First off, the first biggest rule we have is everyone signs a non-disclosure agreement, which means you cannot discuss a case outside the organization without my written permission and the written permission of the person that we're talking about. Okay, that's a no. We will sue you for doing it. We will fire your ass and sue you for doing that. We do not, and we're not a 401c3, so you can't. The government can't come in and say, "Well, I need to see your records, Mr. Joe. You're a 401 no bullshit." We're a private organization funded by private sources, which means if you want to see any data I have, you're gonna have to drag my ass in the court and sue me in front of the known public, which I'm gonna make a big screaming hissy fit about. So every media agency in the world gets to see that the government wants my data. Woo, 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 what's going on here?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it comes a point you have to be careful because too many, when I got into this field 40 God years ago, first off, 40 years ago, there was none of this. Everybody was scared to talk to him. 28 years ago, everybody was scared to talk to him. I pissed Paola Harris off so bad she didn't speak to me for 2 years because I brought up the word alien abduction in an interview with her.
Okay.
I pissed off Richard Dolan for the same reason. Now, if you notice today, all of them talk about alien abduction.
Yes,
and they use a lot of ICAR's terms when they're talking about it. Because they used to come on Wake Up USA and talk to me about it and UFO when they first started. So they got mad about it and then, Joe's probably right. Let's use his data. With Paola, I had to meet her in Roswell on the 60th anniversary, give her a big hug, sit her down and say, Paola, this is real. She said, yeah, I think you might be right. Well, she proved it to me when she started the all-woman STAR conference in Stevensville, Texas. That was her first conference she ever did relating to alien abductions. Thank you, Joe. You could at least give me a thank you, Joe, for convincing you that it was real.
Right.
So there's so many people in the field that were anti-abduction until they spent time with me that are now pro-abduction. And do I get a thank you? No, I don't. I get a big bird finger is what I get. It's I mean, really and truly, it's okay because my goal always was to wake up ufology that alien abductions were real. It was a big part of what was going on.
Sure.
And you would never get to the truth without alien abductions. You just, they're the, there's only 2 people who know what's going on, alien abductions and aliens. Cause you know what, after sitting in front of Congress 2 different times for over 60 hours, guess what I learned? They don't know jack.
Gotcha. That's intriguing.
When the admiral looked at me and goes, you know what, I hate you. I can't even use the language he used. I hate your blink, 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 and blinking self because, and I said, why? I've never done. And he said, yes, you did. You have made me realize this is real because I was hooked up to a polygraph through. I had them bring in the FBI polygraphers from Quantico, and so they did that. And so every time I said something, they were like, they would look over the polygraph and it's like, so this guy's like, I never thought this was real ever. I always thought this was bullshit. The whole Pentagon group that they brought, which was about 35 people the first time, there was more than that the second time, said they never, ever, ever, ever thought this was real, which tells me our government ain't even looked into this crap.
Nope.
Not in Congress, not in the military. So all this stuff about they know, no bullshit, they don't know. I've always told people you're never going to get to the truth through the government because they don't know what the hell's going on because they never really believed. There may be some inside group somewhere, some men in
Yeah.
black or somewhere, which aren't really actually military. They may know. But other than that, nobody knows. I mean, Congress looks at you like, what? The whole time, Nancy, the lady who's running, she's like, what? What? What?
Yeah.
What? And then she would stop and she would say, is he telling the truth? And like, oh yeah, he's telling the truth. And I would do shit like, well, I was sleeping with your mom, and then needed to go. I was lying, and it was just ridiculous. The how few people inside our Congress and inside our military that knows about this. And when I say there's virtually none, there's none, because I was always said, oh, it's compartmentalized. That's why they don't know. Bullshit. That ain't even what it is. They don't know. Maybe some people out of Area 51 might know, but I don't even think they know. I think there's a bunch of bullshit out there too. I've gotten to the point now that before I went and did the classified testimony, I thought, okay, yeah, some people know. But so when I went, there was at least 2 admirals, at least 2 generals. There was a shitload of colonels and a shitload of aides there, and they the whole time all of them were like,
It's on the floor, huh?
what am I supposed to think? I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to make some friends here. We're going to connect. We're going to do some research.
And you floored them all. That's
twice.
Incredible.
But twice.
So,
and when I came back the second time, they had lists of questions like this. And you know how I am. I'm just bam, 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 bam,
Right.
bam, and bam. And they're like, every time he would stop, is he telling the truth? Yeah, he's telling the truth. So then they decided, oh, maybe the guy from Quantico don't know what he's doing. Number 2 polygraph from Quantico, right? Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
so they brought in a voice stress analysis guy. So he's sitting there. So the 2 of them, one on each side, and I was saying something, and they're looking at him, they're both going.
Yeah.
And wait, more than that, because I done scared the shit out of these 2 guys. And
Right.
they just,
Damn.
so they didn't have a problem with ET flying around the sky. What they had a problem with was what ET was doing with our citizens. It was just more than they could understand it. And when that admiral was cussing me, that's what he said. He said, now I have to stop and think that there's a threat out there to my family and my children, everybody I know, that I never even knew it existed, which makes Iran and Russia look like child's play.
Oh, yeah. It does, if you think about it.
So they were all like, so I was like, and then I was talking to him about some of the hypnosis research we did and some of the stuff we found. Oh, well, hypnosis is tainted. So then I told them how I did hypnosis. They were, and again, they were like, it's like, nope, it wasn't like that. I said, we do. I said, we do. I said, we do it in a way. And that stopped. We stopped when we went to lunch. We were talking at lunch. The guy's like, he said, you are very professional in the way you do this. I said, well, it's useless if I'm not. I said, we're not MUFON. Yeah. We're not out there guessing about shit. We're not morons. I said, we're not chasing lights in the sky. It's a waste of freaking time. I said, you would chase lights. I said, that's your job. You go chasing things around the sky. Let the pilots go shoot one down and see what happens. He said, what do you mean see what happens? I said, shoot one down and see what happens. He's like, it sounds like a threat, Joe. I'm like, well, find out. Like, no. He's like, no, we're never shooting anything down. Matter of fact, I think they put out a thing saying you cannot shoot them down.
Yeah, there is a standing order. I heard about that. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Big shout out to the chat room once again. Heidi's joined us. Thanks for joining us, Heidi Call. And we have a couple of questions that came in.
Hey, JB.
Yeah, JB's here. Jen's here. What do we think are in the purses that are in the sculptures? And are we talking about a tech or a spacesuit, which is kind of nebulous? I don't know what she was referring to there. But okay, so that's kind of, now earlier on we were talking about you were asked the question, are aliens gay? We went over that part, and there was some things, some people confessed a few things, and all good, that's great. But Christina brought up an interesting question. You probably have an answer or at least a speculation on this. Are they, let me call it up here, put it up on the thing. I wonder if they can control the breeding of us, which is kind of interesting. That's like, oh man.
So let's backtrack on this. So now there's 48 blood types, which is kind of ridiculous because they say that, but like one of them's got one person. So somebody tell, oh, it's golden blood, it's golden blood. So it's not golden, it's still red, and there's only 50 of them. Yeah, they're going to breed out. That's not going to be. So when you start going through the list of these other blood types, most of them are going to breed out. There's just not enough of them. And some of them are like Rh negative. They're dangerous for children to breed children. So with Rh negative, there's now a shot you can get so you can have kids. In the old days, you'd have to go get a blood test before you got married because you might not be compatible with your husband. And now you just get a shot when they check your blood and they go, oh yeah, well they're not compatible. Watch this. And out of that 48, about 30 of them can still take the Rh negative, but there are some that can't. So they're kind of screwed. There's not enough of them around to get their own blood, and they can't take Rh negative, which kind of messes with them. So when you start looking at it, it looks like there's been attempts to change the human genome. The problem is the other ones aren't good enough. And I think those are from the government. The Rh negative, A, B, and O are probably from aliens in the beginning. Rh negative was probably a gift because no scientist can tell you how it got here.
I see.
When you ask them, oh well, where did Rh negative come from? They look at you like, I don't know.
Well, let me check my notes.
They're like, we know it was about 30 or 40,000 years ago, Joe, but why Mother Nature created something that killed babies is beyond us. They go on with it. Well, some of these new blood types are the same way. They can't really just go get married to people with ABOs and positive or negative because they're not compatible. Yeah. Babies aren't going to live. So people are like, well, where'd that come from? Those are mutations, just like Rh negative are mutations. Now, the difference is whether they're a mutation through natural selection, which is what Rh negative is supposed to be, or whether they're a mutation created by someone on this planet. Well, they're pretty sure about 20 of them, or at least 15 of them, were creations of us. We created them. Through certain types of mutation selection, we created those blood types. Okay. Being that we were looking for something that would be a stronger, hardier, healthier blood type. Well, guess what? They're not, but still, it's cool. It was cool. But it gets confusing when you start talking about 48 blood types. So now out of that 48, the ABO selection, or about 92% or 94%, I'd have to look it up. So that tells you only like 4 or 6% of the new bloods are even available. And like I said earlier, most of them are going to breed themselves out because there's just not enough of them around, and they're not compatible with ABO. Oh. They're not even compatible with some of the other, like the golden blood's not compatible with these. Looks like golden blood's only compatible with itself. And it's not gold. Before anybody asks me, it's not the color of gold. They called it because it was something new, and they were like, "Oh, look at the golden blood type." And then we got the one we just found just recently that there's only one lady has it, and she's about to die, so that's going to be. And some of the other ones we found only have 10 or 12 or 15 or 100 or 500. Not enough to really do a selection since you can't backbreed with ABO, the dominant bloods on the planet.
Gotcha.
It's very interesting. But none of these people have any characteristics of anything. So the ones we've looked at, which is about 12 pairs, 14 pairs actually, are not showing any like advanced. See, at least with Rh negative, you found some advanced characteristics, especially in telepathic abilities. They seem to have strong telepathic abilities. These other ones don't really seem to have that. So what it looked like to me is what they were trying to do is maybe take the Rh negative and force it into a mutation that maybe would make the person more telepathic.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't seem to work. So we'll just have to wait and see where they go. I mean, they're too new to really understand what's going on with them. I mean, we pay attention to them because it is something we're interested in. We always run the blood type studies. And I got a appointment with a genealogist not a genealogist, I forgot what you call them. The guys who do the blood work.
Hematologist?
Yeah, no, it's not. Is it a hematologist? It might be a hematologist. But the guys, we had 3 of them that worked with ICAR. This was so funny, by the way. I call these 3 guys. Yeah, that's what they are, hematologists. I call them up and I ask them, well, we're working on these different blood types and this. And the guy's like, why? And who are you? I said, I'm just nobody. I said, I'm just working with this research group called ICAR. And he said something. He said, they got nothing to do with aliens. I said, no, ain't got nothing to do with aliens. That's all. So when we're into this about 2 years in, he said, I noticed this has something to do with aliens. I said, no. I said, yes and no. I said, we're not going to put your data out there or your maps or anything. Not until you give me permission anyway. He said, well, why did you do this? I said, well, I was trying to find out, maybe these crazy people, there's something in common. Maybe it's a certain type of blood. Maybe it makes them crazy and they think they have aliens. The guy starts laughing his ass off. And I said, well, it's funny that almost 65% of everybody who said they have abductions are O negative, and they seem to have telepathic abilities. And he just looked at me like, well, what the f is that? I was like, my question, I said, you're the hematologist. I'm just a lonely non-researcher guy.
Yeah.
And they got really interested in it. And then when I asked them, why is South America and Central America all O? I mean, it's officially 99% O.
I didn't know that.
He's like, why is that? I'm like, why is it? He said, well, whoever came over originally was, I said, I understand that. I said, but didn't the Spanish come over and, hump everybody in South America? I said, were they all O too? And he said, that's a damn good question. He said, I don't have an answer for you. And they got into it and they studied it. And then their maps, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to ICR.com, ICAR1.com, the maps are still available to look at. And you can look for yourself the different parts of the world, different points of blood types. Now, they need to be upgraded, but still, South America is really pretty much all O. Nobody got an answer for it. Interesting. So, I guess they came down. They didn't stop in North America. They just came down and bred themselves in Central America all the way down to South America. And these people who came over were all, which is, if this was a family group, say a 400 or 500, a camp group of 400 or 500, maybe they did. But that's an awful small selection to have a healthy group.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the Toltecs were a very advanced society. So were the Mayans, Aztecs, and Incans. I said, so it's kind of interesting to look at it. Doesn't prove anything, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. It's an oddball thing that no one seems to have an answer for, just like RH negative. No one has an answer for. No one has an answer for the golden blood or the red blood or any of the other bloods out there. No one can seem. We're stupid, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. It's really, we are. I mean, come on. These are people. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have a bachelor in science, but some bitch got like 8, 9 PhDs in blood and hematology, and they're stupid. I don't know what to think about it. It makes me. And these days, when I got this stupid trigeminalgia, it makes me even crazier. I'm like, you people got to get a grip. And anytime I talk to one, like matter of fact, when I was getting my MRI done on my back for my for this thing I got going on, I'm talking to this doctor about blood. He said, God damn, you know a lot about blood research. He said, I think you know more than I do. And I was like, well, that's not good. You're the damn doctor.
You're the one with the PhD, man, or the MD.
Yeah, 2 PhD MD. And I'm like, well, doc, he's like, so he brings over this other doctor. We start talking to 3 of us while I'm waiting on my MRI results. And he's like, and then the head of the MRI people come over and she's sitting there talking. She said, oh, no, do you know all of this? She said, no ordinary person knows this. And we get this big conversation. And then I tell them, well, South America's all O, and so is Central America. So they get on and like, and they look it up and sure enough it is. And they're like, I didn't know that. I said, well, you're the fucking doctor, not me. And I'm like, she said, you got the wrong calling. You should have been an MD. I said, oh, no, I couldn't deal with sick people. It was funny and kind of scary at the same time because they were asking me questions about it. And I'm thinking, between the 5 of them, there's like 10 PhDs and 3 MDs. And I'm thinking, and 2 of these, one of these doctors has got like 4 PhDs in neuroscience. Okay. And I said, wait, doc, you're the one working on my brain now. Let's get this shit straight. She starts laughing. She's like, I've never heard of this before. So, I mean, the last time I talked to her, which was a couple weeks ago, she said, after she told me some results, she comes back and she goes, I need to sit down and talk with you. Next time you come in, and she said, I really want to sit down and talk to you. She said, because I don't understand this. First off, she said, I don't understand how you know so much about this. And I said, well, I worked with 3 hematologists and for a long time. And I said, I'll give you the maps. And she said, yeah, but but what was your driving factor?
Yeah.
You have a PhD because you get I looked you up. She said you get a bachelor's in advanced avionics, advanced electronics, and advanced science. And she said, I'm confused how a guy who works on electronics and avionics knows this. And I said, well, if you want to talk, we'll talk. And she cracks me every time I talk to her. But the point is, it's not what it's supposed to be. So if you look around the world and you look at different maps around the world, you're going to see clumps, like 37% positive, X negative, and then you're going to see A, B, O and negative, positive and negative. You're going to see A plus and A negative, and it's little clusters all around the planet. Like I think one's 37%, one's 36%, one's 33%, one's 15%, and it rolls like that. I think A, B's are around 3% each side being positive, and O. Last I checked, O negatives was 7%. Somebody told me 15 the other day. I'll have to check into that.
Okay.
But the thing of it is the RH negative is 15, or I think it's 18% now. So this started out as a big fat zero 40,000 years ago. Now it's 18% 40,000 years later. So 40,000 now it's going to be 36%. 40,000 years after that, it's going to be 72%.
Wow.
So what the hell's going on here? So something triggered this. For what reason? To make us smarter, brighter, faster? So, RH negative triggers a lot of things like green and blue eyes. So when you pay attention, when you look at your politicians, more than half of them have green and blue eyes. Most half of your movie stars and musicians have green or blue eyes.
Yeah.
And brown is dominant at something like 80%. It's so why? And remember, 2 million years ago, brown was 100%.
That's true.
So what's going on here? Same thing with your blood type. So something triggered this. There's a reason why it's going on.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because Elon's moving us to Mars. We need these extra things. I mean, really, I have no idea. Maybe the aliens think RH negative tastes better. Really, when it comes down to the truth.
I don't want to be steak dinner for some aliens.
So, when it comes down to it, it's hard to understand exactly what it is, what the combination is, why it's going the way it is. And somebody asked me the other day, are RH negative people smarter than RH plus? I don't really think so, even though they more are serving as politicians, which kind of makes me think, look, you stupid RH negative people, get out of politics. But they do. And they're in music and industry, so but I don't think they're any smarter. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many were doctors, how many were lawyers, and things like that, and how many were specialists. I'd have to go back and look. I know I got a lot of friends that are RH positive. They seem pretty smart to me. So what it is, there's a reason why this baby killer became as positive, popular. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, RH negative kills babies. So I can't remember if it's a dad positive and a mom negative, or the dad negative and mom positive. I don't remember which one it is, but one of those combinations kills babies. So you have to wonder how it's at 18%. Now we can understand for the last 10 years or 20 years because there's a shot, but before that, for the 40,000 years before that, where somehow it managed to get to 15%, there were no shots. So the amount of dying babies had to be enormous. So why? What triggered this? What created this?
Yeah.
Was it extraterrestrial? Was it? If it was Mother Nature, she made it so y'all get off her planet. And she's like, go back to Mars where you dumbasses come from. And I was talking to it's funny. I was talking to the doctor, and I was talking to. I said, "What is your biological?" I said, "What is your biological clock set to?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "What is it?" She said, "Well," it's whatever the planet is. I said, "No. Look it up and tell me what it is." And she comes back. She says it's 24 and a quarter hours. I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, what is Earth?" She says, "What do you mean? What is Earth?" I said, "Earth is set at 23 and a quarter." I said, "We got an issue here, right?" She's like, well, what do you mean? I said, your biological clock is
Set
1
to
minute
Mars.
faster than theirs is.
Yeah.
And then I said, the only planet in our solar system that's 24 and a quarter hour days is Mars.
Yep.
I said, matter of fact, look up the optimal body temperature for a human. She told me what it was. I said, well, see what Mars was 55 million years ago. She looked up. She said, well, that's what it was. I said, well, see what Earth is. I said, it's not the same temperature. She's like, well, what the hell are you telling me? I said, I'm telling you, our DNA originally came from Mars.
Yeah.
I said, what we are today, I can't tell you. I said, we're growing and mutating. I said, but it looks like our original DNA came from Mars. And guess Elon wants to go back to Mars. I said, maybe we'll have an easier time there. I said, look, I don't know, people. Something happened 55 million years ago, triggered something. Maybe it was, I don't know if it was a big rock that came here and started life, or maybe some aliens put us here.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know, but it seems like somehow or another, at least part of our human race is set to a different planet, and I would like to know why. She's like, I hate talking to you. She said, you're smarter than me, and you have less. And her two doctors that work under her are laughing her asses off. She said, I've never heard her say that before. She said, John, I have 2 PhDs. I said, I'm definitely smarter than you are. He started laughing. She's like, well, I don't understand. I said, because I do research. I said, just like y'all do on neuroscience, y'all do tons of research to see what's the best way to handle it. I said, I'm doing research on this. And he said, but why? So I don't want to tell you why. They were like, she's like, I'm looking you up. She said, I'm looking you up. She said, there's a reason why you're doing this. I said, well, there's always a reason why I'm doing it. I said, life is different. I said, so all I can tell you is what we were told isn't the truth. I said, our basic function of life is we're not being told the truth. I said, I don't know why we're not being told the truth. And then, so when I'm talking to her, I was telling her that, I had gone to DC to do a testimony twice. And she's like, wait, what? I said, yes. I said, secret testimony at that. And she's like, well, why would they want to talk to you? I said, I don't know. I said, I do have a class 10 security clearance. She's like, what the hell were you doing in the military? I said, I wasn't chasing aliens, that's for sure. People always think when I say that, when they hear me say my security clearance, they always think it has something to do with extraterrestrial. And I said, it didn't then. It may now. It does allow me to get into stuff I couldn't get into before, but who sent me that? Oh, my Pal Talk's open. Okay, I was wondering where those questions were coming from. No, it's not, so I can go to Area 51. I have high enough clearance to go inside the base.
Cool.
But they're not going to show me anything of interest. Last time they showed me a big open tunnel, we were 100 stories down, and they showed me they opened up a door, and it's a big empty room that goes straight up to the thing that would slide doors that open.
Oh.
And I'm like, I said, well, what was in here? Well, Joe, that's just what they were doing. I just wanted to bitch slap somebody.
I hear you, man. If we're okay, so yeah, there's a potential, I don't know what you would call it, like a path we're being led down for one. We're biologically speaking, at least it seems that way. Do we? Could be alien. I mean, I don't know. If you look at ancient astronaut theory, we were seeded. We were, but at the same time, the whole Mars thing. If you include the Mars that we come from Mars, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, it does. So this is what's really weird about this. So let's zip back six. See, ancient aliens are idiots. I hate, George Yavuso is actually a friend, but anyway, they're idiots. So if you zip back 65, because they don't go back far enough. They go back a couple thousand years. No, it's way worse than that. So if you go back 65 million years, well, we know there was a fifth planet because we just recently found out some of the stuff in the debris field in the asteroid belt was compressed, and it could only be compressed by a planet.
Right.
So the old theory was it was just an asteroid belt left over from a planet, or something that tried to be a planet didn't make it. But now we found that it was a planet about 5 times the size of Earth. Well, there's your new Hebrew for you. And then
Mm-hmm.
we know Mars was alive and kicking. It had a biological system on it, an ecosystem on it. It was growing. It had life. It had water. It had everything. Pretty sure Venus was the same way because we found out that Venus' upper atmosphere is identical to Earth's. It
Oh,
isn't. The
that's neat.
bottom isn't, but the
Yeah,
top is. Even today, it's still the same as Earth's atmosphere.
that's
So we know.
incredible.
So at one time, we know the bottom part of Venus was just like Earth, no moon, but just like Earth, roughly about the same size as us too.
Mhm.
So what you find, you can't find this on Venus because Venus is constantly rotating its ground. It's so hot and so melty that it's just kind of bubbling over all the time.
Right.
But Mars and Earth and the asteroid field isn't. So what it looks like, something destroyed that fifth planet. Could have been the tug and pull between Mars and Jupiter. Could have been something came in and hit it, but whatever it was, it destroyed it. So we know that because two of the two moons going around Mars are from
Right.
that debris. That's
Okay.
where they came. But it's worse than that. If you look at Mars, you can see a giant crater on one side and Olympus Mons on the other side. So
Yeah.
something hit it and
Yeah.
it turned into a giant volcano on the other side. Plus, there's the Marinara crater, which no one can explain how it's so huge. No one can explain how it got there.
Well, if you look at it from above too, it looks like a scrape, like an oblique strike.
It does. It looks like something came over and just
Mm.
ripped it out
Yep.
as it go. And then there's us with several large asteroid fields, and we know around 50, 55 to 65 million because one of them wiped us out.
Mm.
So what it looks like is something destroyed the fifth planet, destroyed Mars, destroyed us, and destroyed Venus all at the same time. We all died around the same time, but we were the only planet that recovered. The rest of
Gotcha.
them didn't recover. So there was only one place to go. We don't know who lived on Venus. We don't know who lived on Mars, and the other planet doesn't matter because they're gone. But it's a good possibility when you talk about grays, reptilians, and humans. They came from those three planets. When
Oh,
you look at a reptilian, they're not designed for a low gravity environment. Look at them. I mean, their arms are this big around. Their thighs are like this. That's not low gravity. That's 2, 3,
it's heavy
5 G.
world. Yeah.
When you look
Probably
at the
have.
grays, are designed for a low gravity environment,
Yeah.
a low light and low gravity environment. Big patch things on their eyes so they can see better.
Yeah.
There's no bones, just cartilage, so they can move around, pull themselves up, and jump up in the air. And the humanoids are designed for probably a little bit heavier G than here, which would have been Venus.
Hmm.
So as far as we know, all three of the races that visit here came from this solar system. We can't prove it, but it's a good possibility that's where they came from. We always talk about, oh, they came from way out in deep space. Well, they might live in deep space now because they didn't have a choice. But it's a good possibility they came here. And with Earth being the only planet left, somebody decided to colonize it,
Hmm.
which wouldn't have made sense. It was back in the era of the dinosaurs. The reptilians probably were here. The Greys were probably here. Even the humans were probably here because when you listen to the Mesoamericans, when you listen to everybody in Egypt, there was a human race there because they got the big long heads that come back like that.
Right.
Well, the Mesopotamians, the Sumerians, and the Egyptians had leaders that had those big long heads.
Yeah.
Now we tried to say the Egyptians was some disease. Come to find out that wasn't true. So all three of them might have been here. They may have been a struggle for who was going to get this planet, but then someone screwed up. The human aliens couldn't really breathe here. They created, and the Sumerians talk about this, they created 2 great white dome cities to live in because they couldn't breathe the atmosphere. Then they created a race just like themselves, but they could breathe oxygen on this planet.
I see.
That race decided, well, we omnipotent super beings. Why are we plowing the field? Screw this. So they began the 7 creations of man, which the last creation was the former creation of us. Not quite as bright as us, not quite as tall as us, not quite as smart as us, but they were roaming around, plowing the fields, making the meat, doing everything that the human aliens needed them to do. Well, for some reason, the reptilians who were living up there with the Dogon, what do they call themselves, the Nemos, decided to come down. Reptilians and not the reptilians, the the Dogon and the Sumerian talk about this. The reptilians used to come down, steal women, rape them, get them pregnant, and bring them back.
Okay.
So those women had children that were born. When I originally heard this story, I heard, okay, I'm thinking, oh, some weird, half human, half reptilian, but that's not what they were. They were humans, but they were humans that said, no, screw you, you go plow the field.
Oh.
Now we all got that human, we all got that reptilian section in our brain.
Yeah, right.
That's the one that says, F you, buddy, I'm not doing it, you go do it. So they overthrew the Sumerians, and that they just left. There was too much for them. There was too many of us at that point. Okay. So they just left. Wherever they went, God only knows, but they went somewhere other than here. The reptilians were still here, but even the reptilians were screwing around with all the societies, because you can see, like I was talking earlier about them with the person and how many different societies they're in. Mm-hmm. So they were screwing around, but for some reason, at the time Jesus was born, or at the time this went on, they went from being revered to feared.
Interesting.
So no one knows why, but then they started leaving the planet. So there was no more of these big-headed humans on here anymore, because the Naskins used to board their children to look like those aliens.
Right.
Originally, when I heard that story, I thought they were talking about grays, but they weren't. They were talking about the human aliens.
Okay.
And so the humans were trying to get a foothold on that continent, because the reptilians had a pretty good foothold on there. The Toltecs, the Mayans, Incas, the Aztecs all believed in the reptilian.
Oh, a lot of their gods were
thought reptilian. Thought they were the bearer of life and things like that. So you have this, and then boom, Jesus is born, and the reptilians just go away. And pretty much all that's left on this planet is us and the Greys. And the Greys came around that time, I guess, to make sure these other two didn't start no shit. Because really, when it comes down to it, everybody says, oh, the Greys were the worker bees. No, bullshit. They're scared of the Greys. They can kill you with a thought. So reptilian humans didn't want to have anything to do with the Greys, even though they were smaller, even though some of them were 7 and 9 foot. They're very strong for what they look like. And their brain power is much, much, much greater than any of the other two races. Matter of fact, the stories are told when you hear them today, like when a reptilian or a human is present, when a Gray is present during an abduction, they always put their head down in respect, because they know that King Gray will mess them up. I see. So now you have all of this, and it brings us to where we are today. 65 to 70% of all abductions that happen today are done by the Grays, not by the other two races. Even though they still do abductions, they're not the majority like they were before Christ. Before then, they were doing the majority of abductions. Since then, only the Grays really do abductions. So it's kind of like, what exactly was it? Was it truly the Son of God? Was it a hybrid of some kind? We don't know. None of us know, because none of us were there. It's hard to say what it was. I mean, Jay and I just did a story on who was Jesus, not the religious figure, but who was Jesus. So, it was 20 years he was missing. Well, we found out where he was. I can't believe modern day science couldn't figure. No, he's all over the place. So we find him. The first place we find him is in a little Roman city. And the way we found him is his documents. That Roman city wrote to the emperor and said, what should we do about him? They said nothing. So he ended up being in 5 different Roman cities. All of them wrote to the emperor and asked the emperor. The emperor said, leave him alone. He's harmless. Okay. That's pretty much. So then he left Egypt because there was a Persian emperor who was sick and asked him to come heal him. He spent 5 years there that we know of. Whether the emperor was healed or not, I don't know. But since Jesus was still alive, I'm assuming the emperor was healed. And then right after that, he comes back. So he's much older than what we're told. I was always told he was 36, 37, 38. Yeah. But that's impossible, because he had to be at least 20 before he left on his journey, because they couldn't have left any earlier than that. Okay. He wouldn't have the resources. So that means he spent 20-something years roaming around. Then he comes back, and then he does stuff. So he's 45, 46. He's not 38. Yeah. Okay. So that I don't even know where they come up with that. But the point being is we actually found the man. And what helped us was the Muslims. The Muslims actually traced his ass around when he was moving around, because they actually mentioned Jesus several times in their writings. So you get to thinking, okay, what exactly is going on now? Who is this guy? Was he the son of God? Was he an extraterrestrial? I mean, really, Mary was gone how long in the desert before she came back pregnant? What, 30 days or something? 60
Something
days?
like
It's a
that.
long time. Yeah, it was a long time. So you're Rome with, matter of fact, in a desert full of Roman soldiers. Because I could never figure out why Jesus was a white man. I mean, come on, he was from the Middle East. He should have been, a little brown, kinky hair. He should have been a white man with long flowing hair. It just didn't work. I actually asked the priest for that one time. The nun came out with the rule and smacked my hand like 18 times. He's like, Joe, you don't ask questions like that. And I was like, why? I mean, he had the beard. So it confused me. Well, if he would come through that area through Roman, or if that's the image of God, then that would explain things on exactly who he is. But did the reptilians fear him and leave because of him? Or were they warned? Get the blank off the planet because it's a new start.
Gotcha.
See, no one ever takes the time to do real research anymore and track things through a progression. They just find a little artifact this big and they come up with 80,000 conclusions.
Yeah,
it irritates me.
Yeah,
Take your time. There's a lot more evidence out there than people want to talk about. And when we sit down, we do real research and we track things accordingly. So just recently, I had a Pentecostal priest write to me because of tracking Jesus. He wants me to come talk about it. See, this makes it easier for the layman to believe in Christ. So now we know he was alive. We know he went to all these different places, and we know things went on in these different places. And then he comes back and he does what he does. So people know he really existed. He was written about by the Roman emperor. He was written by the governor of Rome. It was written by about several governors from Rome, including the one that ends up letting him get killed.
Yep.
So it was, people, I don't know why people didn't take the time. It wasn't even that hard of research. Yeah, I mean, it really, I thought this was going to be, oh God, we're going to be pulling our hair out, which I ain't got that much left of, forever. And it didn't turn out to be that. It turned out to be a quite easy research group. And even Jay was stunned. He's like, God, this was too easy. He said, where's everybody at? Why aren't they looking at this? I mean, and really, it does show him, because when you listen to him talk about him before he left, he had a full beard and all. So most men don't even get a full beard till they're in their 20s. Some guys get lucky and get one at 15, 16, but he didn't look like that kind of guy. So, he was at home. He did his stuff. Besides that, you have responsibilities in the Israeli families until X time years. So most Israelis don't leave to go on their quest until they're 20, 25 years old.
Okay.
And what he was an Israeli. So it made sense. And then, like people say when he came back, well, yes, he was married, because you can't be a preacher for the Israelis without having a wife.
Interesting.
You have to have one. So, Mary Magdalene was probably his wife. They don't want to talk about any of that. There was probably children. Now, were the children gifted? I don't know. Probably not.
That's where the RH negative came from.
It might have. We just don't. And what was Jesus an RH negative? What color was his eyes?
Yeah.
We don't know any of this. Unfortunately, these are things that we can guess about. And then, unfortunately, the only thing you can find in Aramaic written at the time of Christ is the St. Thomas Epistle. And it pretty much just says, split a rock, there I am, split a log, there I am. It was anti-religion. So if that was written by Jesus, that was saying, don't worship me like that. That's not how I want to be worshipped. I don't want to be worshipped in a big church. And remember, he ran off to money lenders and shit like that. So
sure.
It sounds like what we get today is completely contrary to what was going on at the time. And when you hear other Romans talk about him, he didn't sound like this crazy guy. He sounded like he was it did sound like he had gifts, but it didn't sound like he was trying to push them on anybody. He was just going through and talking to people and helping people learn that, if you're going to worship, this is how you need to worship. And but none of that translated into what we got in the Bibles. What we got in the Bibles is completely contrary to that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can go back and find some of the codexes that are 300 years after his death, and they are much, much different than what we get in the Bible today. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, there are at least, I think, 20 or 40 appendix to the Bible that never made it into the Bible, including the one of Mary Magdalene. So, I mean, we don't know. And then don't forget, King James reread it so he could get a freaking divorce.
That's exactly right.
I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure what we're reading in church today is not, and you know what? That might get you put in hell, people, because you're not reading the right Bible. I'm just saying, this show is not about religion, but it is one of those things that people don't understand. And it is a big question. I've lost 2 jobs for saying Jesus was an astronaut. So it's, well, I don't know. Somebody asked me one day, I said, well, maybe one of these aliens came down, took over a Roman soldier, got this woman pregnant, and this is who this guy was. Because when you think about his miracles, these are nothing that extraterrestrials can't do. Everything that he said to be able to do, extraterrestrials do. Not just that, 80% of what he says he did, we can do today. Us, just everyday humans. So that can't be a miracle if our dumbasses can repeat it. Let's be honest about it. Now, we can't walk on water yet, but the extraterrestrials could. They could wave a hand and see what was wrong with you. So they had the tricorder beds, which we now have today. But those are cool. So when you look at what went on then and what's going on today, it's much closer. And then when you add an extraterrestrial into it, there is no miracles there.
Yeah.
That scares the shit out of me, actually. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, it's something to consider and really ponder. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's why the ancient alien people hate me, because I blow all their theories out of the water. It's I got into it with Giorgio and a couple of other ones. We had at a conference somewhere, and you could see them. They were all just, when we were done, they were like, "Oh my God, I hate you." I said, "What's the matter?" Because I kicked all your asses. I said, "God," I said, "do some research. Don't hand me some little golden plane. What the hell?" Yes, extraterrestrials on a planet. That's what we all know. That. Come on, how did that plane get there? Who put that plane? Who did that belong to? You know, I mean, I like Giorgio too. I mean, you know, I've had him on the show a few times. I've talked to him a few times. I met him at the End of the World conference in 2025. He had New Orleans. We had a lot of fun down there. I can't tell you what went on because he'd get fired, but really, he'd get fired. But still, you know, and unfortunately for him, I think he gets stuck in some stuff. And I think some of his stuff is scripted. It's he told me some of his stuff was scripted. So, but you know, and like I said, I like the guy. Some of them other ancient alien theorists, they need to get fired. I mean, the Sumerian thing, you know, with the reptilian thing is an easy thing. That's a story written by the Sumerians and the Nemos. So you have 2 different groups writing around this around the same time. The Nemos talk about the reptilians used to come in and land in the water. The Nemos actually, the Dogon actually knew all 3 of the Sirius stars, A, B, and C. They knew the density of A. Their calendar was based on the rotation of B around A, which is 55.5 years. And scientists didn't find it until 200 or 300 years after the fact. So, I mean, and not just that, they knew the circulation of the body, how it rode. They even did skull surgery. And people lived because you could tell it healed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is some African tribe living at the top of a mountain somewhere, don't know jack. And no. So that tells you that the connection to the Nemos, which were the reptilians, was legit. And we know that the humans were down there with the Sumerians because the Sumerians write about it quite a lot. So, I mean, I don't understand why the ancient alien theorists have such a hard time with this. I'm like, guys, pay attention. Look at what's going on. But see, they don't want to do that because, you know, one, that kind of closes out their story, which they don't want to do.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, though. There has to be this is what we originally, I mean, it's basic science, really. This is what we originally thought. Oh, the hypothesis changed because we have this new information. Now we think this is the narrative. It's not that hard to do. But apparently, if you have a television show, you have to lock into this one thing.
You have to follow the BS, and and I mean, I've been on the show once or twice, but I'm not the big a fan on it. And I've been on a couple of the other TV shows too. So, yeah, I've been on Ancient Aliens, I think 4 times. Well, I was officially on it twice, and then they put me on twice doing other stuff. You can find it. I think it's season 12 and season 14. One of them's just talking about the blood type study, and one of them's talking about, the blood type study again, because Linda Moulton Howe tried to take credit for it. See, that's another problem with the field. I have never, I worked in, if when I was working in construction and I was redesigning stuff, if somebody would try to do my work, that I would have knocked their asses out. But here we are listening to these people. I have heard a dozen people try to take claim for the blood type study. Now, it's been up there on a website for 25 years, so you can't really take claim, but they do.
Wow.
I get phone calls. Oh, Joe, such and such, so they invented the blood type study. And wait. And then the bad part is I'm getting upset, but Linda Moulton Howe's getting upset too, because she said she did. I was like, so I called Linda somewhere. I said, Linda, don't do that again. I said, I'm going to sue your ass. She's like, what? I said, don't do it again. I said, you did not invent this. I said, you watched it. And this is the killer part. It was 3 years earlier I was on the show without her. And then they brought her on 3 years later, and she tried to redo it. Even George Norrie got pissed about it.
I see. Oh,
I was on George. She said, what? Everybody, because I had, the second time I ever revealed it was on Coast to Coast. It was about 10 years after the first. And George, it was blowing George's mind. He's like, so I'm running to him somewhere, and he's like, they're just, everybody's just saying it's theirs. And he said, I said, I know, George. He said, well, they can't because you weren't here first and nobody was talking about it but you. And but it's just, that's what makes it so hard to make the field legit.
Yeah.
Because people realize you're only as good as your last thing. Well, I'm not in that. I'm not in the field for that. If I wanted to do it, I would release something crazy every week, and I would always be on somebody's show but that's not what I'm in for. I'm looking for the truth. I don't really give a shit about the rest of it. I am truly looking for the truth. I want to know what the bleep are they doing on my planet? Why are they screwing with our citizens? Why they think RH negative people are cute or tasty or whatever the hell they are. And like one thing I think, one of the reasons I don't think the aliens eat us is we're all high in cholesterol.
Yeah, that's it.
They're probably going, God, you see what you see the cholesterol? He's well marbled though, and get the hell out of here. It's funny, but it is a strange thing, but you can see the progression. So this is another thing that bothers me. So the Sumerians talk about the human aliens. The Dogon talk about the reptilians. So do the Egyptians and everybody in South America. But the Mesoamericans and the Egyptians also talk about the human aliens with the extended heads, which is what they had.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a and then all of a sudden they're gone except for the Greys. And this is a kicker. There were no Greys before the time of Christ. Go look for them, see if you can find them anywhere. The only Grey you can find prior to Christ is about 400 years, and it's in the hieroglyphs, and that's it. After that, you can find them quite a lot, but before that, you cannot find them. So they weren't here, and it does seem like they were sent here to make sure the other two idiots didn't get into a war. I'm pretty sure that's what they were sent here for. They basically came here and told the reptilians and humans, look, I will help you. Don't act like an ass here, okay? Yeah. And the Greys are much more advanced. I mean, their ships are biological. They grow their ships. They grow their own food that the aliens can eat and their ships can eat. I mean, they're way more advanced. Their brain power is probably on a level of 100 times what they have. And the reason you know this is because they've kind of disappeared and the Greys just kind of spread out.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Philip, what do you mean the Greys were the son of Christ? No, I don't. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone. I don't think that's true. But no, I think the Greys were just sent here by the council and say, hey, look, a long time ago, this galaxy was a warring galaxy. And then somehow or another it stopped. Maybe it was when the Sagittarius. So most people don't realize this, but our galaxy's eaten 5 other galaxies. Currently, the biggest one is the Sagittarius galaxy.
Yeah, that's where our planetary system is. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people think that when the Sagittarius galaxy got sucked in, one of the solar systems that were deposited was ours. There's a big argument among science today whether we're natural to the Milky Way or we were brought in. And a lot of people think we're brought in because, number one, we're not on any of the spiral arms of the galaxy. We're off of it, like we were pushed away. And there's a bunch of red dwarfs around us that come from the Sagittarius galaxy. So they're thinking that's where we're from. And that would be an excuse for aliens to come visit a planet that's not from their galaxy. That would just, it would be a good reason to come. So there's lots of reasons for them to be here, but you'd have to know. I mean, we're far enough off of the spiral arm that you'd had to look for us to find us. It's not like you would just see us.
We're kind of high on the disc,
too,
on the main disc.
We're kind of, so like this is the main disc. We're like out and up.
Out and up.
Well, it depends where you're up. Now, if the other one, you're out and down, but it just depends where you are. But
right. But according to our Earth's North Pole, we're out and up.
Yeah. So
if that's the orientation.
Yeah. So the point being is you would have had to be an extraterrestrial looking for something off the spiral arm because everything else is on this. There's 3 spiral arms in our galaxy. Now, there was 2. They added one. And that's where all the stars and planets are.
Yeah.
That's where they are. And so instead of like for us thousands and thousands of light years to get something, these damn things, some of them are 2 or 3 light years apart. So races there would know each other quite well.
Right.
But for us, like Charles Hall's tall whites, which I rarely talk about, but we've now proven that they did exist, thanks to some military friends. They're not here for anything, but they're so in Area 53. That's where they live.
Yeah,
and they use us as a jumping point from different spiral arms, top, bottom, side. So they're here, and we allow them to be here. They give us a little bit of technology, and they can go wherever they want. It is true they go gambling, too. I didn't believe that until I had 2 state troopers call me.
Oh, yeah.
I was floored. I'm like, well, he had pictures of them. And
that's cool.
So they got him in like these big coat things and hats on them and glasses on them, gloves on them and stuff.
Well, that's very similar to mine.
These are like 7.5 foot tall, man. I'm like, Lord. But it was more than that. We had taxi drivers call us. We had limousine drivers call in. We had some sheriffs calling all together. So when Charles Hall introduced these to me, I said, Charles, I said, you a rain guy and you met these tall aliens at Area 53. I said, you sure this ain't a fantasy? Because I read all 3 of his books and I'm thinking, but what got me is I knew he believed, no matter what he believed. And then I said, well, Charles, it's cool and all. I said, if I get more evidence, I'll let you know. I don't know. A couple of years passed, and we had these 2 taxi drivers call in, and then we had some casino workers call in, and then we had these 2 state troopers call in. And I was like, really? He said, well, I want to get in too much, so I'm retiring in 2 years. And the guy said, I'm retiring in 3. Well, they've retired, and we've had serious conversations about it.
Okay.
And he said, there's no doubt they were extraterrestrials. He said one of them pulled his glove off, and it was like this weird, it looked like a hand that had been soaking in water for 6 months or something. It was all white and wrinkly and shit.
Yeah.
He wanted to throw the dice. And he said, you know what? They always won at the tables. I said, yeah, because they had mental powers. Stop dice on number 9. I was like, but all together, we ended up with like 24 new witnesses.
Okay.
So that helped. And
well, yeah, that's my story too. I saw these guys at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk.
Yeah,
it was only a week after hearing Charles Hall's story on a rewind.
A lot of people weren't paying attention because they didn't think, all right, maybe some kind of costumes or something, something going on at the casinos. Now, people who had actually heard the different interviews realized, oh, wait a minute, this is what Charles Hall's talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, we have enough witnesses call in to us to add it to the list because the way we do aliens is you have to have X amount of people to be considered. So for us, it was ICAR, it was the Greys, the Reptilians, the Humans, the Light Beings, and the Brown, which we call the cleaning crew. So at first, that's all we had was 5, and then we added Charles Hall's in. And we kind of stopped it. People like, Joe, you got to add the Manish. You got to add the Manish. You got to add the Manish. I'm like, why I got to add the Manish?
And people.
So, So well, you see, and people, I think sometimes people screw up with the grades. I'm not 100% sure there, and
okay.
I don't want to flip it into that, but I think sometimes that's what they do, because a lot of times when they describe to me, it sounds like the gray, and I was like, gray with no antennas, I guess. And then I got to thinking maybe the cyborg grays had antennas on them, because there are some 3-foot grays that are cyborgs. They're half gray, half machine, and they control themselves, but they're also controlled by the other grays.
I see.
The other 3-foot grays. And people say, grays come in 3 foot, 5, 6 foot, 7 foot, and 9 foot. And well, the consorts, the queen's 9 foot, and she usually has 2 consorts, and they're usually 8 or 9 foot themselves. They're males. And then there's a group of 7 foots that are guards that guard wherever the queen is. And then the 5, 6 foot are the ones that come in after the 3 foot get you. They're the next level you get in. A lot of times they like to play good cop, bad cop. They love Holocaust cop. I don't know what it is with their asses and these Holocaust, these cloaks, the Holocaust cloaks. They just love them things. And you'll see them sometimes in brown, sometimes in black, sometimes they'll have red eyes and stuff. But it's the grays. It's like they're playing games to get information or something. Sometimes I think they're just playing games, to be honest with you. And then a lot of times you'll see them but they're more like the ones who make sure that the little grays are doing what they're supposed to be, and they also bring the information to the 7-footers. That's pretty much, they're like the intermediate guys. Now, people, none of them are gray to start off with, but there are, we'll say there's gray, white, and brown, but the grays are not actually gray. So to help you with this, the ships make a blue plasma. That's something they absorb through their skin. That's how they eat. And they just absorb it through their skin. Well, as they absorb it through the skin, when they completely absorb, they'll look like a cobalt blue. Like an electric cobalt blue. Right. And as it fades out, if they haven't eaten for a while, it gets translucent. So people think they're grays, but it's not. It's just translucent. The whites do the same thing. So when the whites absorb it gives them like a creamy blue color. And when they run out of food, it kind of looks translucent. The browns, it's a little bit different, but so it's just the way it is in the color. So people get a little confused by that. I'm not exactly sure what the 7 and 9 foots are eating, but I don't think they're eating that blue plasma. I think they're eating something else. I don't want to speculate on that because I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what it is they're eating. As long as it ain't us, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been a kind of strange thing. Oh yeah, see, somebody put that picture up there. So but people never took the time to really go through and ask the right questions.
Yeah.
People, it's just a gray. Well, no, that's not what the hell it is. And so now we use that as an abduction criteria, because if you really know the colors, we know you've seen one.
Interesting.
So if you just come up and say it's like gray, like your gray car outside, I'm going to know you're full of crap, and I'm not even pay attention to you. And it's just, when we first broke that was just 30 years ago, but we were all stunned. And then the lady said, "Oh no!" And she had a picture of one, and I mean, it was so blue. It was like, wow! It was like a blue I've never seen before. I don't know how to explain it. It really was like a blue I'd never seen before, and which makes sense. I mean, there are different species using different colors, but the ships run on this stuff too, and and this is how we found out about this. So we kept getting reports of blue. It just randomly somebody be talking, this really weird blue color, this really weird blue color, and we kept getting these, and we're like, what the hell are they talking about? And they were being immersed in this blue color. It was like little sparklies inside, and they would immerse, and you'd come out feeling better. I'm like, So finally I went one night, I called 50 contactees up, and I said, look, this is what I want y'all to do. I made sure they didn't know each other. I said, I want you to put in your head, what is the blue color, what is the blue color, what is the blue color? So next time they take you, they'll answer, because the grays are worse than the reptilians and humans. They'll do it too, but the grays are worse. So when you hit them with a question, a lot of times they will answer without thinking about it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, there can be consequences for this. Okay, if it's the wrong question, the grays can get extremely upset, and their mental powers is just something you don't want in your head. And I'm just warning you ahead of time. This question didn't seem to upset them. So they came back with it, and all 50 had the exact same answer.
That's great.
So
That's
when
awesome.
you do this, you get all the same answers. You know you've got something because they don't know each other.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what the question was but them. And they come back and give you the answer. And then we found out that the ship just made it and would absorb it as fuel, and the Greys used it as energy. And they could, if we were damaged or hurt, they could put us in there and help heal us.
Oh.
And I was like, well, wow, this is something I never thought about before.
Yeah.
But it also makes the ship kind of have this blue sheen to it when it first runs it through its system. So sometimes the ship will come off as a kind of a weird luxy gray color, but when its ship's running the fuel through, filling up, it gets like a shimmer to it.
We've heard
that
reported too.
You can't even tell what color it is. It's just like it's a shimmer, and nothing works around it. Matter of fact, especially the gray ship, if you're within 2 miles of a gray ship, screw it. You're not getting a picture. You can try. You can be out there, tapes on everything. Well, you're not getting
8 miles away with a telephoto.
Well, there's a really good photo we got in the desert in Mexico of this ship. It's off in the distance, and we were snapping shits. At first, we thought it was a sandstorm, and then we noticed there was a big round ship on top of it. And it was so close to the ground, it was creating the dust to pump up.
Gotcha.
So there was a cloud of dust between it and the ship, and you could see it moving up and down. It was a good picture. We got it somewhere. It's on one of the websites, but it's one of those things. But it was a good 8 or 10 miles away, and I don't think we'd have got it any other than that. Matter of fact, I remember some F-16 pilots in Belgium trying to get pictures of a triangle over a big city. They could see it clear as day. They were looking at this damn thing like, it was right in front of them, and they had orders not to engage it. And the guy's just got his camera running nonstop, and he's looking at it on the thing in his thing. It's just nothing but mush. But you could see it perfectly. People underneath could see it perfectly. I think 2 people that managed to get a shot, and they were good, probably 10 miles away. Mm-hmm. It was a big triangle. We're talking. So I can't remember the name of the city. It was one of their major cities. It was bigger than the city.
Like Antwerp or something?
It was, I don't know, but it was big. We're talking 3 or 4 miles across, a mile high, 3 miles long. It was huge.
Wow.
Now we seen one in Tampa, Florida. We went out. Somebody had told us about this triangle. They kept seeing over this island. So finally, we rented a helicopter, like a bunch of dumbasses. Went out there. I think it was 10 of us, all kind of equipment.
I think you told me this story.
Yeah, I think it's way off in the distance. You're looking at this, looks like this mushy black thing. It was kind of, cloudy day, thunderstorm day. And as it got closer to the island, we realized what the hell it was. And we were going to try to leave, but we couldn't because we had a helicopter out there. And we had to call the guy to come get us. And the damn radios weren't working. And then out of nowhere, these fucking Jeeps come. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Man, they fucked us. Oh, excuse my language. They messed us all up. We got slapped around, beat around, and seized all our equipment, drug us down. And then we were underground.
You're an underground base? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we were underground. We were underground for a while. And then when they finally decided to release, and they wouldn't give us none of our equipment back, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. And the 2 cameras they did send me back had internal hard drives that had been smashed. And they threatened us. They did all kind of stuff. But when we come out of the base, we were in Tampa. In Tampa, somewhere in the middle of Tampa. I still can't remember where. Y'all go now.
Where was the island? Was it close to Cape Canaveral or something?
It was close to Tampa. It was, close. Okay. 5 miles off the coast or something, 7 miles off the coast.
Still, I mean, damn.
Nothing on it. It was just a big sandbar island, basically.
Yeah.
And and we went and flew over it a couple times to see if we could see any hatches or anything. That was the funnier part. A couple of weeks later, we got warned. Joe, did you not learn your lesson? This guy's cussing me out all kind of ways. Did you not learn your lesson the first time? Fly over the island again and see what happens. We got missiles out there. It's like, oh, never mind. He's really good.
I bet.
Yeah, And the pilot was nervous the whole time, like he knew there was something out there. It's like,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
we're not going back. It was so that's that. We don't need to go there again. I guarantee you, though, we lost, and this was 20, 25 years ago. We lost probably $15,000 worth of equipment between all of us. It was horrible.
Wow.
We were all just Jesus, all kind of advanced cameras and stuff. It was so bad. But you get all of these reports, that we want to go check out, and the one that's the craziest is my wife. She's nuts. No, I'm not kidding. We're at Eklund Air Force Base one afternoon, and she goes around the fence. I said, "Baby, what are you doing?" She said, "Oh, we're just gonna go walk on the sand." I'm like, "Oh, I can see this is not going to end well." So we're walking on the sand, me and her. Then she got all embarrassed because there's a nude beach out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
She gets on. So anyway, it's starting to get dark. I said, "We need to go home." And they got these buildings, and they got these low range satellites. They're not they're just domes that look for anything coming in below 500 feet, basically.
Oh, the little radar domes?
Yeah, and they're smaller. And then we out there, and this big globe came bouncing along and just engulfed one. It was like out of one of them weird spy movies, like when you try to escape, it would engulf you from back in the 60s. But we got a picture that's on the ICAR website. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, okay, I'm just going to ignore that. I was worried it's going to come back and get us. So we walk around, we see this building, and she sees a set of stairs. She said, "Let's go down." I said, "Baby, what is wrong with you?" She said, "It's on the side of the bathrooms and all. It can't be nothing bad." I'm like, "You're crazy, right?" She's like, I couldn't let her go by herself. And I'm like, so she starts down the stairs, like bebop butthead, just going down the stairs. And all I remember is about 50 stairs, 60 stairs, and there was nothing to remember. We've done some hypnosis, and it was some scary stuff. And one day we'll do it. We'll talk about it. But it was freaky, weird, insane. And then I was like, and then we come back out somewhere. We weren't even nowhere near that thing. They dropped us off on the other side of the peninsula. And I'm thinking my car's way over there. And wait, this is the worst part. Back then they didn't have cell phones. We had a pager. I was like, well, how do we get to my car? And so I got lucky. There was a taxi cab dropping some people off at one of the resorts. So I said, "Can you take me to get my car?" He said, "How'd you get over here?" I said, "Well, they dropped us off here." And he started laughing. Oh, he said, "You was nosing around where you shouldn't, huh?"
He's done it before.
He brings us back to get the car. That whole thing was just insane. That was just that. I don't know. That was completely and utterly insane. Yeah. And because it really truly was just like a little bathroom house. But that same night is when we got the saucer landing. That's on the ICAR website too. We got it landing. We got it with video too, no less.
Oh, very cool.
Well, I started researching Eglin. They got, what was it?
Yeah.
84 runways in the middle of the swamp. Oh, there ain't no roads or nothing, man. Just some. I didn't even know what to think about that.
Yeah, well, they trained your special forces stuff out there, so yeah.
So first it came in, and it hovered over the beach for a little while, and they had just built a new tower out there. And it's just sitting there, and it tilts a little bit and goes forward. And I'm looking, and I know there's 4 or 5 runways there that have no roads or anything, so it just lands on one of them, and then it's gone. Assuming it just went down and was taken, but because that's the only thing those runways could do. There was no way to get, and it was serious swamp, so you weren't going walking up to them or anything.
Yeah.
So I figured that's what they do. You just land on them and they bring you down, and you get on the ground, do your thing. It was that place was crazy. We got run off of Eglin so many times, and then one night we were screwing around. And we didn't know where we were. Well, we were on Whiting Field, which is a special forces base, and I don't exactly even know how we got there. And I remember these guys come out of nowhere with M16s. I'm like, "Hello, how you doing? What are you doing here, sir?" "Just some exploring." He said, "You know this is a special forces base, right?" I said, "No, I did not."
Do now.
But see, Eglin is where they test all the non-nuclear weapons. If it's not a nuclear weapon, they test it there. Then where it's Air Force, Marine, Navy, that's where it gets tested. And every now and then you'd be sitting out there and see rockets coming in off of a ship, landing in the swamp somewhere or something. They also have down the road from there, there's another Air Force base. It's in the middle of this huge 600-mile forest.
Oh, yeah.
It's biological chemical. It's just so funny. So you're cruising through this forest. It takes like 5 hours to get through this forest. You're cruising along. So you see a little bitty white sign about this big, about this long, biological chemical testing facility. And then you come back, there's another one on the other side, a couple of miles earlier. It says the same thing. I'm like, and I said, where in the? I said, I'm never coming back to this place because you never know what's going on back there.
Oh, I know, dude.
It's the name was Jackson or something. I can't remember the base name, but
I know what you're talking about. I was Air Force, so I'm a little familiar with it.
I was like, man, I said, these people are nuts around here.
Yeah.
And then the guy's telling me, I'm standing on the base one day at Eglin. He goes, he looks up my record. He goes, and who are you? I said, my name's Joe. He said, no, I know who you are. And he said, who are you? He said, you got a Class 10 security clearance as a lieutenant commander. He said, who the hell are you? Then I said my name again. And he's like, don't get smart with me, boy. He said, you see all that swamp out there? I started laughing. I said, yes, sir. I said, but you see that's a clearance. I'll come looking for you. It's always the same thing. Oh, all these alien hot. No, it's not what that clearance was for. I wish that's what that clearance was for. But that was back in my Navy days. I wasn't even looking for aliens.
Yeah, man.
Matter of fact, one of the things that helped me get into it was I'm sitting down on Nimitz one afternoon in the line shack, and these pilots are coming in telling me about all this weird shit they've been seeing. And I'm like, y'all are nuts, man. Stop smoking the marijuana. I said, I said, you're full of it. I don't believe you. And he's like, no, Joey, I'm telling you, man, freaking thing. Come out, pull out tape, and you can see whatever this thing is following them around, chasing them around, pushing them down out of the sky and stuff. Someone would come on top of the plane, and you would see this blue field coming underneath, and it'd start pushing the plane down.
Oh, crazy.
They'd keep pushing the plane down, and then they would the plane would It's like these pilots were pissed. He said, it's not the Russians. I want to know who the hell this is. Some new government crap. And they're going on. Now, today drones could do that kind of stuff. Drones don't have that kind of speed yet, but they have those, they can maneuver like that.
Sure.
Now, there's a couple times I thought we was going into, and then my wife, turn here, turn here, turn here. Some base, I turned, boom. I'm not kidding you, man. It's like a line of guys with M16s. It's an Air Force. It's a line of, and where were we? Niceville is where we were. Yeah. I should have known when the sign said Niceville. I should have went the other way. It's looking right, and you see. This was after one of those incidents. I think it was after 9/11. I'm looking at them.
On high alert, yeah.
Shit. And I was like, and where are you going, sir? I said, I wasn't going here. I didn't even know y'all were here.
I'm going in reverse, excuse me.
He said, he points to the turnaround thing. He said, there's the U-turn right there. So I was like, yes, sir. And I was gone.
Yeah, man.
The worst is when we turned on the Pentagon. That was.
No.
Yeah. And then DC and cruise. So when you get off the interstate, you got this little loop thing, right? Yeah. I'm cruising along. And we were going somewhere to eat. And it was like 5 of us. So I said, that looks like it right there. And I just hit it. And I came off the ramp pretty fast. And I'm not kidding you, dude. Out of nowhere, these son of bitches. Whoosh. I'm thinking, the guy walks up to my car. Yes, sir. Can I help you, sir? I said, no, sir. I was going to get something to eat at such and such place. He said, well, you took the wrong exit, sir. It's the next one. I said, yes, sir. There's a U-turn right there. Yes, sir.
Dropping in reverse.
Oh, man. That was hilarious. That was scary and hilarious because they were like, they were dead serious. You know, I wanted to ask him, do you have aliens in there?
Yeah, that'd be great.
You know, everyone I've met so far, everyone I've met at the Pentagon didn't know what aliens were. Everyone. I'm thinking, what are you doing, people? I said, you're not doing a good job keeping on Russia and China. So what the hell are you doing? But when I was doing the testimony, I remember two of these aides for these colonels came over and we're talking. Actually, we're having dinner and we're talking. And he's like, what made you get into this? I said, I met a bunch of stupid pilots used to tell me that there were aliens chasing them down. And I said, then one day I'm at work and this lady walks in, starts telling me she was alien abducted. I said, what? And then I'm at my dentist one afternoon. My aunt dentist starts telling me she was abducted by aliens. I'm like, what? All of a sudden, out of the blue, people all over the place were telling me they were abducted by aliens. I was like, what the hell is this? Thinking they're all wacko cuckoo. And then I started looking into it and found out they weren't. And he said, so you believe? I said, no, I don't believe. I know. I said, there's a difference between.
There's a difference.
And he was like, really? I'm like, oh, yeah, really? I said, when we get back. And then, matter of fact, when I got back in the polygraph, they asked me that. And I said, I know. And the thing just like, when I did that, the guy's face just kind of, whole face just kind of drooped down. Like,
yeah, I bet.
Shit, this is real. That was the funniest part to me, doing both times. The simple fact that when I was doing it, there was a realization to them that this was actually real. That they before this, they thought this was just some BS. And then I tore up, what's his name? I tore up Greer and his buddy.
Really? Tell me about that. Because Greer's been going on and on.
So Greer's going on about this dimensionally. He said, well, what do you think? I said, I think Greer's a moron. And I said, you know that guy, that spy guy y'all had up there who's third-hand information? I said, let me ask you something as a general. Do you take third-hand information from spies? And he started laughing. He said, well, I said, well, do you? He said, well, he goes, please, no, man. I said, well, why are you listening to this idiot? I said, first, let me ask you something. I said, if we were flying through a hole and we lost 175 aircraft, would we ever go through the hole again? He said, no, after 10, we wouldn't go back. I said, my point. And I said, and if some weird group was getting our people, would we let them have them? He said, well, hell no. We wouldn't even let the Chinese guy. I said, my point exactly. But yet you're listening to this idiot like he's real. And he just kind of looked at me like, I really didn't think of it that way. I said, now, those pilots I was listening to, they were being serious. I said, everything coming out their mouth, I would take as godsend. But I mean, they weren't saying nothing, but these alien craft were weird. Yeah. And he said, well, what do you think about Stephen Greer? And I started laughing. Started laughing hard too. I said, you got to be shitting me, right? I said, the guy who said there's 51 types of aliens visiting our planet. I said, I'll do you a favor. I'll go over the type of aircraft that I know that are here. I said, there's about 5 types. I said, I guess them other ones hitch a ride. And I said, let me go over the aliens that I know people say that are here. So whoop, that's 6 types. I said, I don't know where the other 45 types are, but maybe they're coming through a portal or something. And then I said, well, do you have a Stargate? And he looked at me, what, are you stupid? I said, well, that's what I heard George Bush was doing over there, trying to get the Stargate. And he's got a big old belly laugh going on. A big old belly laugh. He said, well, we wish. And he said, we'd be using it to drop bombs on people that wouldn't even know it was coming.
There you go. Yeah, they would too.
Yeah, they would. He was being serious about it. And then, but by the time I got through, what is his name? Koresh. He said, I said, if I was you, I would investigate him. I said, I think there was some fraud being portrayed on you for whatever reason. I said, I think what happened was Mr. Greer's popularity has been waning real hard and he can't make that money he was making before. And I said, I think he just came up with this bullshit. I said, because come on, man. I said, well, you'll know. I said, do you have 75 craft? And he looked at me like, what are you, stupid? So I said, look, how many people we got in here from the Pentagon? I said, I know some of y'all represent Area 51 or you wouldn't be here. Right. I said, how many craft do we have? And they all just looked around at each other. As far as I know, we've got.
Okay.
I said, well, what about the Roswell craft? He said, I often wondered about that myself. He said, and if we do have one, it's something we retrieved from the Germans. He said, I couldn't tell you if it's alien or not. He said, but I guarantee if we have one, it's something. He said, but we don't have a bunch of stuff like that. I said, what about Dulcie? He said, what about it? And I said, He said, would you like to go to Dulce? I'll show you how big it is. It ain't big enough to have all that shit they said was going on down there. And I was like, really? He said, oh, no. He said, it's maybe a mile long underground. He said, it's probably only 40 stories down. He gave me a complete layout of it. And he said, that's Dulce. And he said, you don't want to go down there because it's contaminated. But if you want to, I'll put you in a suit and take you down.
Okay. It's contaminated. Good times.
I was like, I said, well, I heard your boy said they was fighting them out with machines. He started laughing. So one of the guys that works at Dulce comes up, he goes, and they're both just laughing. I mean, big hard belly laughs. He said, well, I've never heard that one myself. He said, but I'm gonna go see if there's any gray bodies did down. I was like, he said, where do they get this stuff from? I said, people need to make money. I said, so they say all this shit. I said, Greer left his job. Think of this. Greer was in charge of the emergency room in New York and left to be an alien guy.
An alien hunter, yeah.
I said, so remember this. He takes people to some little place out there. I think it's in in Virginia. He charges $5,000 a head. They have a spiritual encounter with an extraterrestrial. And he looked at me like, that sounds like fraud to me.
Yeah.
I said, well, he brings 12 people at a time. I said, what is that, 60 grand?
Yeah.
Every time he does it?
CE5 or something like that?
I said, look what else he's done. You know, I said, when he did the big thing in Washington, he made almost 200 grand off of that. And he looked at me going, you're shitting me, right? Well, Greer just went from here to here now. Yeah, if he finds out it was me, he'll probably shoot me, but still. It's I couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't. They asked, and I couldn't take it anymore. So when I was done with him and Koresh, I think they're gonna put Koresh in jail. Actually,
really?
Yeah, I think he's going to jail. Maybe Congress can protect him, but even the Congress ladies are looking at me like, "You're kidding me, right?" Because they kind of thought he was telling the truth, and I was like, "This is the military." I said, 75 UFOs. I said, "What, you think the aliens would come get the UFOs?"
You'd think so, right?
I said, how many? I said, the Greys are so much more advanced than us. I said, if we've got anything of theirs, they're letting us keep it. And she said, well, how many times you been to Area 51? I said, that's classified, ma'am. She looked at me like, she said, you're shitting me. I said, it's classified, ma'am. I'm sorry. I said, I can go other places you want to talk. I said, I can't talk anything about them. I said, I can tell you how many times I've been outside of Area 51, about 5. So you've been outside? I said, yeah, waving my hand, yanking on the fence, flying drones around. They don't give a shit out there. I said, I met the sheriff. He tells me, oh, you know, if you only go on the gate 1, it only costs you $750 to get out of jail. I was like, really? Half the people I know wanted to go walking around inside after that. I said, now, if you go past gate 2, you're on your own, and they may drop you in some deep, dark hole. But I did say 4 things to let them know for sure I had been there before, and they were like, well, the Congress people didn't have a clue, but the military people were like, oh. The one guy was like, he said, who are you again? I said, I'm just the alien guy. And the thing that was so funny to me, they kept asking me about that class 10 security clearances over and over and over. And I was like, Joe, the guy's like, I got 3 stars. 3 stars. You see them? Your clearance is higher than mine. How can that be? He said, how many stars you got? I said, 0. He said, you even more captain? I said, no, sir. He said, well, I read your record. You started out as enlistment and then were promoted to lieutenant, and they gave you lieutenant commander when you got out just for your retirement. I said, yes, sir. He said, who were you again?
Just alien.
He said, I would have asked your captain, but he's dead. I was like, nobody, sir. And he's like, I'm having a hard time believing this, Mr. Joe. He's like, you must be not. I said, he said, you must not be telling the truth. And then I pointed to both the guys, and they looked at him. He's like, well, how can this be? He was so pissed and so confused.
Yeah.
And but it was funny because the second time they sent different people, but I was surprised. When the first time I went, there was at least 30 people representing the Pentagon. And it was probably at least 10 senators there and 20 or 30 congressional reps and stuff. I was like,
okay.
and then I'm like, who are all you people? Then it got sticky because the second time I went, there were more Pentagon people there than they were senators or congressmen people. And I'm like, what happened? So, well, we kind of figured some of the stuff you might be talking about might be a little more classified than these idiots need to know. That's how he said it.
That's how he said it.
That's how he said it. But the lady running, Nancy, she was like black hair, nice woman. And she always had a stack of questions. She says, well, did you ever think about running for Congress? I said, oh, hell no. She's like, why? I said, because I would be compelled to tell you everything I know, and I can't do that. And I'm sorry. And then I can't remember, I call him Johnny Walker. He was a one-star general. And he said, well, you come work for the Pentagon. I said, oh, hell no. Mm. I said, I like my life.
Yeah,
he said, what do you mean by that? I said, oh, no, y'all ain't putting no sodium mannitol, 30 pentothal down me with some hypnosis. And then that was so funny. 5 of them just froze. Wow. The guy goes, wait a minute. He says, how do you know that? He said, that's a secret mix that we use for hypnosis along with I said, don't lie to me. I said, you don't just use a therapist. I said, you use somebody who's got psychic abilities. I said, you use sodium mannitol, 30 pentothal, and that. And I said, that way you can get in your head and then you can clean it up before you leave. Mm-hmm. This dude was pissed. He was pissed.
It's like, you shouldn't know that.
That's what he said, too. There's no way you shouldn't know that. I said, I know a lot more than you think I know. Yeah. I said, it works real well, though. I'll tell you that much. And he said, do you do hypnosis? I said, yes, sir, I do. And you ever use that? I said, no, sir, I have not. And how do you know it worked well? I said, because I've seen the effects of people. He was like, you sure you don't want to come work for us? I'm like, They were kind of funny, kind of spooky at the same time. Right. All the Pentagon people were like, well, because the only thing they had was you had like, I don't know, you had a bunch of colonels, a couple of Navy captains, which is the same as a colonel in any other branch. Yeah. And there was about 3 generals and 2 admirals, different rank and stars. And I'm like, what are y'all doing here? There's nothing I'm going to say y'all are interested in. And that's not what I heard last time. And everybody there had reviewed the last sessions. And let me tell you what, it was 12, 20, 28 hours the first time around. Okay. The first day was 12, second day was, 12, 22, it was 30 hours the first time around. Okay. And I said, man, y'all reviewed everything, huh? He said, yeah, including all of the Quantico tape. And according to Quantico, you didn't lie, not even a little bit. And he said, the guy wrote underneath it, worse than that, he was so comfortable. He said there was no way he even wanted to lie. He said you could see by his body, because, he was in body language and facial recognition. And right. He said, like the guy was so relaxed. And the voice dress guy says his voice never even pinged. He said, you got somebody who wants to tell the truth and wants to be heard and does not want to lie to y'all. And I still remember Miss Nancy when she got it, because she did the question the first time. She goes, well, you got an A from Quantico. I said, well, that's really nice to hear. She said, no one gets an A from Quantico, Joe. Well, I did. It was kind of funny. Like I said, it was kind of funny, a little spooky. But this time there was more military people than there were congressional people. Right. They were very select. I think there were 6 senators and only 3 reps and a couple of aides, but that was it. And these all had high security clearance. The whole time, though, it's like every 5th question. What about that security clearance? I said, what about it? I said, y'all do know I worked on the USS Nimitz, right? He said, Joe, your clearance was higher than your captain's. How can that be? I said, well, I worked Old Salty. And they all looked at me, Old Salty, except for the Navy people. They knew exactly what it's talking about. Oh, you worked on the reactor. I said, I worked on more than just the reactor. I said, matter of fact, to prove this to you people, I said, go on the reactor, go behind the reactor. On the 3rd bolt, you'll see my initials carved into it. He's like, really? I said, yeah. Well, everybody who worked on it did that. And he's like, and I said, more than that, to know who I was, I said, unless you've changed out the ping boxes in the tower of the Nimitz, I said, inside on the right side, all the way at the top, you'll see JPM scratched in. because I installed that box. He said, well, they're still there. I said, well, you can check for yourself. He's like, well, there's no doubt what you were doing. He said, but even that's kind of high. Usually it's a 7 or an 8. I said, yes, but for some reason they went 2 steps higher because something about if we had to pull the reactor or something, there's something inside that nobody could see.
Oh.
Still have no idea what the hell that was. And we never pulled the reactor when I was on board. So, I mean, they may have had thoughts of doing it, but when I was on board, they didn't do it.
Gotcha.
But I also worked on inside of certain types of missiles, and in the tower, I did work on 3 of our most advanced weaponry systems we had at the time. Actually, there's 2 of them are still very advanced even today. For anybody who works, I did work on the flanking system. Yes, the flanking system. Yes, it was. I don't know. It was beastified. And there's a couple other things that we got to work on that, you know. I think it was because of the combination of stuff is the reason my clearance was so high. Because, like he said, if I only would have been working on 1 or 2 or 2 or 1 or 3, it might have been like a 7 or an 8. But because I was working on all of them, including I worked on the jets too. So,
yeah.
Well, that's what I started out with. Well, I started out with Special Forces, and I can't talk about what I did for them, but
I meant to ask you about that. I'm sorry. Was it? You say special? Was that SEALs or?
So this is weird. I was in boot camp, and I was doing something, and the guy came up to me. He said, "Man, you have really good leadership ability." I said, "Thank you." And he said, "I noticed nothing really scares you. You're jumping off the things and doing all because your Navy makes you do all kind of stupid shit." And they put you on this tower that's 80 feet up, drops you and puts you in tear gas tank. You got to run firefight. And he said, "You're always so fearless." He said, "I might have another job for you." Finished that boot camp. They picked me up. So he puts me in what they call Special Forces. He calls it Special Forces because if you were in the Navy or the Army, like a Green Beret, and you got in trouble, we the guys they sent to go get you.
Oh. So
he always called us Special Forces. I was like, I said, "Stop calling us that." He said, "That's what we are. We the guys that go save the other special guys."
Is that the same as EPS, or am I thinking of something different?
It sort of is. It's some, most of it I can't talk about anyway. But I remember one time I'd been out for a year. I just got through a bunch of training. They sent us overseas for it. They had sent in a Green Beret and a SEALs team to go get somebody.
Yeah.
They got their asses in trouble, so they sent us in. So not only did we have to get them, but we had to get their target as well. I was like, this sucks, man. But you know what? We didn't lose anybody, and we brought everybody home.
Outstanding.
And we got the target. He said, because the guy goes, he said, "You're just an animal." It's like, I tried to explain to them, because one of the reasons they picked me up was I was 20 for 20 on everything. And he said, "Well, that's craziness." I said, "You find any country boy out here, and they're going to be 20 for 20. I said, "When you learn to hunt from 8 years old, you're usually a pretty good shot."
Yeah.
And I said, "It's not so much a special thing." And anyway, so we went and did a couple more missions, and then we were on hold because they were doing something that didn't need us. So they stuck me on the Nimitz because that's where I was supposed to be anyway, because I'd already been through my Advanced Avionics and Electronics. So they stuck me in the Nimitz, and I was a shooter. I was a guy launching the plane. Was having a shitload of fun. And sometimes I'd be a shooter, sometimes I'd be the plane captain, but either way I was having a ball. And then I still remember they brought up an A6 intruder. They had this weird problem with this missile. And I was bored, so I went over and fixed it in like 5 minutes. And I still remember the commander said, "You fixed it in 5 minutes." He said, "So these guys take days and weeks to fix shit." It was an easy fix. So about a week goes by, he calls me up. He said, "Look, I'm not supposed to bring you up here because you don't have a high enough rank." He said, "But we've been having one of their advanced radar was giving them trouble."
Oh, yeah.
So he said, "Can you take a look at it?" So yeah, I said, we turned it all off because I don't want to get cooked. We turned it all off and got my head in there, digging around. I got my light. So I said, "You know what? Let me go get my infrared light." I went and got it. I said, "There's a problem. Fucking idiots." And I fixed it. I'm gonna kill you, dude. It took me like 6 minutes. I fixed it, put everything back together. He said, "There's no," I said, "It's fixed, dude." I took a picture of it while I did it. I said, "It's fixed. Don't worry about it." So they started launching, doing stuff with it. And He comes back. He goes, it was like in and out. What do you do? I said, well, one of your idiot tech people chipped the wire, and the wire was bouncing against the steel cage. And when it would hit it, it would short out. When it let go, the system would come back on. When it hit it, he said, "You're kidding me. It could not have been that easy." I said, "It was that easy." He said, "You know what? I really want you in the tower." I said, "Well, dude, I'm an ARC." I said, "My MOS is on the deck." I said, "I'm only an enlisted man." Yeah. And he said, "Yeah, and how did you get them 2 rent-a-crows? Nobody gets 2 rent-a-crows because it's E5." And I did it all in 2 years. He's like, "You know what? Let me talk to the captain." Comes by and sees me. About a week later, he calls me up to the captain's office. I'm like, shit, I'm getting thrown off the ship. Because enlisted men never get to see the captain. It's always the number one that you see. I walk in, he said, "Boy, number one is talking nothing but good about you." He said, "I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you." So I'm going to promote you to lieutenant. Now, I was thinking he was going to give me like a whatchamacallit, a warrant officer. But no, sure. I thought he gave me full lieutenant. I was like, wow, okay. And then when I got to see what they got paid for hazardous pay and ship pay and duty pay, I was like, shit.
Outstanding.
So, but I still had an advanced thing, and I was like, okay. And I was waiting for my commander from Special Forces to come pick me up, because that's what I was doing there. And he was coming to get me, and there was a big old fight. He got there, said, "I come to pick up Joe." Came in a helicopter, said, "I come pick up Joe. We got a duty coming up." He said, "You're not taking my lieutenant anywhere." He said, "Yes, sir. He belongs to us. This is part of the group. This is where he really works." He said, "Not anymore." So he got on the phone. And was bitching out, and some admiral calls him. He's bitching, and he comes back down. He said, "No, you're permanent with us. You've been changed over and part of the USS Nimitz, number 68, and this is your duty station." My CEO from the Special Forces lost his effing mind. He lost it. He said, "I was the best special ops he ever had." He lost it. He called everybody he knew to try to get me transferred.
He pulled all the strings he could, huh?
But I was on the flagship, and you ain't getting me off the flagship.
Gotcha. Oh, that's
and then
cool.
Back then, Nimitz was the flagship. So, and just when I was finishing up, and there's some gears spaced in there, but just when I was finishing up my duty term, they said, "Well, we'll give you all this money to stay," and all this. I said, So they posted me up to lieutenant commander. It was so funny when they got my clearance, though. And he said, "I know you're not going to stay, but I wanted you to at least get a better retirement when you got out."
That's
but
nice.
I was talking to my friends. I was on a duty. I was on heart duty. They had sent me to heart duty, recruiter duty, basically is what it is. It was in between stuff. And every person I knew they had talked to, the FBI had talked to. Every person I knew, including girls I hadn't seen since I was like 16.
Crazy.
He's like, I said, "What the hell?" He said, your clearance, they had to make sure you weren't some spy or something. They tried real hard to keep me in after the 9 years, but I was just ready to go. I was tired, and the Nimitz was great. It was a great ship. I had a lot of fun. Had a girlfriend on board. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I had to make sure our ranks were the same so we didn't get thrown out. But we had a good time. It was and I still got to work the deck from time to time, and my captain would let me go down when there was nothing to do. When all the electronic, because I didn't do the little shit. I only got involved with the big shit. And as long as it wasn't nothing big, I could go work the deck and play around on the deck. And he's like, "You just really like launching planes, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I really do. It's a lot of fun." And then I'm out there launching planes. One of the pilots is looking at me, and I'm saluting, getting ready to let him go. He stops. He puts the canopy up. He said, "What's your rank? What the hell are you doing out here?" And I put my hand back up, started pointing. He shut his canopy.
Off we go. Yeah.
I remember when we got back the next day, we were talking. He's like, "You outrank me in your launching. What the hell are you doing?" I said, "Man, I really like doing this." we didn't have all that fancy dancy stuff. We still had the old whatchamacallit launchers, the steam launch. Still had those steam launches, and we didn't have them fancy things that sit inside the deck so you didn't get your head chopped off. We didn't have none of that crap. They do now, but we didn't have none of that crap.
Right,
What was that?
We are
What?
4 minutes past our deadline.
Oh, Michelle, you're not listening. Go back to sleep, Michelle.
So,
Yeah,
Joe,
yeah.
thank you so much for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen in the chat, thank you so much for joining us. And those watching, thanks for joining us there too. My name is Tim Sudano. This is
Send Joe a
Paranormal
steak.
Insight. Say again?
Send Joe a steak. He's hungry.
Yeah, exactly. Have a good one, everyone. If you have a paranormal experience that you would like to discuss on the show, please email us at paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. That's paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com.